All right. Hopefully that got you energized for this last hour of our conference. We kind of touched on it in the last session if you were with us at 2 o'clock, but want to talk about virtual engagement. It's like our new life, and we are just embracing it and having all the fun with it. So to get us started, we'll talk a little bit about what MAA is planning for centrally, what some of the new initiatives that we're doing, including a little sneak preview of some of the virtual stuff that we have planned for Homecoming at Home. And then we're going to transition and talk more about what you all can do in your local chapters and organizations from a virtual standpoint. Some brainstorm and things that we have learned from experience, and then also share some suggestions or things, and really have it be a lot of Q&A and conversational too. So we'll go on to that. All right, so one of the things that we have started that I'm really excited about is a new webinar series. It's we did it MIZ Talks, similar to the TED Talks, but this is really a focus on like webinars. So this is going to be using the same platform that we used this morning. So it really is kind of like a show, but we're planning to do 4 webinars per month, and these 4 different categories: academic, personal, professional development, alumni experiences, and fun. So the plan is really to basically do 1 per week each month that hits one of those categories. For academic, we've actually already piloted this. Some of y'all might have already tuned in, but for academic, we're really showcasing, this is like faculty that have cool research that they can present on. It's really, you know, showcasing the learning lecture type of stuff, but in a virtual standpoint. Personal and professional development, we've got one of these in the works for November. And it's really going to talk about more like financial literacy, or what you can do finance in COVID times. And so something along those lines that are really going to be about personal or professional growth that you could take and adopt in. Alumni experiences, we have our first one for that is scheduled for September 30th, and that's what's featured on the screen there. My friend Anthony Jackson is the chief of staff for Padma Lakshmi from Top Chef. So we're going to have a conversation and just talk about his job and how Mizzou prepared him for that, and really how Mizzou helped get him that job. So a really fun conversation. And then the last one is Mizzou Fun, which is exactly like what it sounds, and really some of what we're going to do in Homecoming is going to scratch a lot of that itch. So behind the scenes fun stuff. If you can't be here on campus, we still want to be able to bring Mizzou to wherever people are. So like I said, this is really something that MAA centrally is going to own, but we would love to have your help on stuff. So how can you help? The first thing is to talk about, or to go ahead and recommend some featured speakers. So if you know of faculty or professors or anybody that can, that would be great, or even like alumni that have great experiences that want to be able to showcase or cool jobs, that kind of stuff. We'd love to know that, because right now we're just kind of grabbing at everything and would welcome any sort of direction. And then really the other thing we talked about, this goes back to what Craig and Ashley talked about, we want you to help amplify our message. So utilizing your organizational social channels, but then also your personal channels too. And just help us draw more eyeballs and participants to those websites. So like I mentioned, we're going to be using the same webinar technology that we used for this morning session. So it really is more like a show, right? So this is best for lectures and presentations, not really social events. We can't see everybody like we can in a Zoom meeting like we are right now. Before, it really is like broadcasting. People are in a virtual broadcast booth, and then we're projecting a show out to the audience. So same sort of thing, speakers cannot see the audience. However, just like you experienced this morning, the audience can submit questions. So that's really what makes it feel live, that you can submit a question and then get an answer, you know, a minute or two later whenever the presenter gets to it, but so that it is, you know that it is live. The cool thing about that technology that hopefully you saw this morning was that it's highly customized to MAA or to whatever other branding thing. So it really looks like it's a highly produced show and really fit to Mizzou. And then, like I said, MAA centrally, really we've got a lot of things planned for this new technology, and it's available to chapters and organizations to use as well, but it really does need to be the right fit. Like I keep calling it, it's a show, it's not a meeting, it's not really social. So we would want it to go to a fairly large audience. And also, if you know of a great speaker, The best thing about being virtual right now is that we can be everywhere and be talking to Deb in Portland and Matt in Florida, and it's all at the same time on the same broadcast. It's not, we can't do that when we're in person. And so to be able to really have a broad audience rather than being too narrow and local is really what we're thinking. But like we said, it's a case-by-case basis. And so this is definitely something that we could potentially use if it's the right fit for your, whatever you're thinking with your organization. So to preview a little bit about homecoming, like we said, I have been on the team that's been working on how can we make sure that we bring homecoming at home and that the celebration can still happen if we have people that either choose not to or not able to come back to campus to do the celebration. So our steering committee, our homecoming steering committee is working on some fun videos that we can can send out and we'll promote on social and the different areas. Including Como Eats, so behind the scenes at some of the restaurants that you would be visiting. I know we've talked about Shakespeare's and Booch's, plus a whole slew of other ones that are queued up. So some cool history behind the scenes, interviews with some of their owners and staff. Another fun thing that we have planned is how to pomp. So this is kind of like arts and craftsy, scratches that itch. So I know probably if when you were a student, you didn't love that experience, but viewing it from the alumni standpoint, or even just like the family coming to see it, it's pretty impressive. So as a fun kid activity or, you know, grown-up therapeutic thing, the steering committee is going to teach us how to pomp in this video that you can do at your leisure. And then we've been working on a virtual spirit rally too with a performance by Marching Mizzou. So you can stay tuned for more of those details, but just being able, since we know we won't be able to bring everybody together in the same way that we normally would, we still wanted to have that same rah-rah cornerstone type of activity to help celebrate homecoming. So as far as some of the other more passive activities that you could do at your leisure that are still in the homecoming spirit, we have a coloring contest where with both kids and like adult categories, and actually one of our professors is doing a custom mandala design, I think. So that is a really cool thing. We're going to do a play on house decks. So rather than the traditional campus decks that you would see with all the pomping, we are going to challenge our alumni to decorate their own homes, potentially painting their front doors or their front window, or just decorating with to make it Mizzou, just like we would with Decorate the District. A driveway tailgate contest. So if you can't come, we know that tailgating is not really going to be allowed this year, but if you're going to watch the game in your house, we want to see those tailgates in your backyard or in your driveway, and have a contest for those that are going all out for that. And then we've also mentioned a little about blood and service drives. Even if there's not going to be a drive in your local area, and won't be able to have the same big service projects that many of our groups do in the name of homecoming, we still want to be able to encourage that. And so if people independently want to give, there's going to be a way for people to give blood or to serve, and then report that activity back to us so we can track it. And then homecoming preview. So you can book your calendars for another Zoom meeting in a couple weeks on September 29th at noon Central. We're going to have a homecoming preview that goes into a little bit more detail, but just before our big homecoming email announcement goes out on October 1st, which will have more of the details about what will be going on campus, and then really launch one of these virtual plans. We're giving you as alumni leaders this peek on that September 29th. And then the one other homecoming thing that I just wanted to plug, I put it in the Facebook group last night, but I know some of you love the homecoming t-shirts, and it's kind of a tradition that you've collected. The homecoming t-shirts are a little bit different this year since we aren't expecting as many people back on campus. The only way that you can guarantee a homecoming t-shirt is to pre-order it by midnight on September 24th. So I will drop that link in the chat so you guys all have that if you do want to make sure that you get a homecoming shirt. But they're all being sold through the Mizzou store this year, but just wanted to put that on your radar since the deadline is coming up if you want to make sure that you get a shirt for this year.
All right, so I guess I will take this next part. Thank you, Stephanie. We wanted to talk a little bit about chapter and organization events. As you are all aware, we are under current event restrictions where Mizzou is discouraging in-person events, just overall discouraging them. Events larger than 20 people do have to go through that approval process we discussed earlier. They get actually approved by a COVID-19 events task force. It's not an internal to MAA task force, so you have to be really thoughtful about all the information that goes in there, filling out the forms, and then having that waiting period to hear back on the decision about your event. And we do need that authorization before we're able to promote those events using our MAA channels. So with that, we are hoping to start embracing virtual events. Even if there is events that gets approved, not every event necessarily could get approved. So is there a way to do something virtually that helps still bring alumni engagement to your chapter or organization? We also want to emphasize, when it comes to virtual events, you definitely want to go quality over quantity. I compare it a little bit to, I know some of our chapters that when they're planning out their watch parties, they don't do a watch party for every single game. Maybe they pick the opening game and homecoming and senior night or a really good rival because they don't want people to get burned out. And this is a really similar opportunity. As you all know, we are all on Zooms or some sort of virtual items for work and for school and for all of our activities. So if someone's willing to give you some of that time and spend time with you virtually, you want to make sure that they're highly engaged, that it's really well thought out, and it's a good use of their time, so they'll come back for the next one rather than get burned out on events that aren't as well planned out and they don't feel the need to come to the next one. That being said, MA does have a Zoom account that organizations can use for their events. And along those lines, we just want to talk a little bit about some tips for Zoom. We're obviously on Zoom right now, so you can see some of the obvious benefits. It's great for being able to see each other. This morning when we were on ALC and Stephanie talked about that being a little bit more of a show for webinars, for presentations. This is where, while we are giving a presentation, you can see everybody's faces, you can interact via the chat, you can eventually turn off your mics and talk to each other. Another great feature Zoom offers is breakout rooms. So maybe you do something where you do start with a presentation, but then you want to be able to talk to each other. So you break out into breakout rooms and you're able to have a group of 4 or 5 people, and it's a little bit easier to talk. That being said, happy hours are an event that a lot of people think of when they think of a virtual event, but they are very hard to do in actuality virtually. We know this from personal experience that a just open-ended happy hour doesn't work like it does at a restaurant or a bar where you can walk around and mingle and get to know each other. You're just on a Zoom screen with a bunch of other, you know, celebrity squares, and you're either going to be the person that breaks the ice and breaks the awkward silence, or everyone tries to unmute at one time and everyone's talking over each other. We have had a few, not with chapters or organizations, but from personal experience doing other professional options, that it just really is hard. So Zoom events need to be programmed from start to finish. You need to have an agenda. You need to have how you're going to speak, when you're going to unmute people, when you're going to open up to questions or use the chat. And it takes a lot of facilitation, introductions and icebreakers, like I said. So when you're thinking about Zoom events, think about the capabilities it has, but also think about the capabilities that it doesn't have, and whether or not your event needs to be maybe facilitated in a different way, or start with the structure and presentation and then utilize those breakout rooms. To talk a little bit more about this, I'm going to pass it on to Molly to talk about some actual tangible virtual event ideas, which I think will be really helpful.
Yeah, so to talk a little, or to touch on what Morgan said about happy hours being hard. So we sat on a happy hour with people we knew. So this wasn't just people, this wasn't even just strangers. These are people we've known for years around the country, throughout the SUC. And we had this really open happy hour format, and we all kind of just stared at each other, and it was really awkward. And so think about how that might be even more awkward if you're trying to have people who haven't joined one of your chapter events before, or aren't necessarily in the loop with chapter activities. And it surprised us as well, but we want to give you all that forewarning, but that's not to say you can't have a social event virtually. And so I think the first thing that is on this list is talking about virtual watch parties. We know that many of you, watch parties are a key component of your fall schedule. And so going along with kind of what we were talking about too, you probably don't want to do a virtual watch party the entire game. That'd be quite a long time to be on Zoom with a group of people, but we know we have some groups considering doing a pre-game activity, maybe an hour or 30 minutes before kickoff, or doing something at halftime and maybe letting that bleed into the third quarter a little bit. So consider that if you're thinking about doing something football related. And then Morgan, if you'll pull up those other bullet points as well. So in the same way that you think about partnering with local businesses for in-person chapter events, think about how you can utilize those contacts to do like a wine or beer tasting with a bar, a brewery, or winery that you have a connection with. Same with cooking demos. Is there a restaurant or the bar that you use for your watch party? Does it have a restaurant, and could you partner with them in some way to do a demonstration? Same with crafting, decorating. Is there some craft night that you can host via Zoom with a local business? Some of these on the side here are events that our Kansas City chapter has had, as well as our Mizzou NYC chapter. You know, Kansas City has done quite a few exercise classes over the last couple months, and did a kickboxing class with like 2,400 views, which is fantastic. So health and wellness, I think, is something on the forefront of everybody's minds as well right now. And then panelists. So are there different topics that you could get alumni from your area together to talk on? Or if you're a school or college, how could you create a panel of alums to talk about a certain topic related to your school or college? So there's ways to definitely utilize kind of this virtual space we're in a different way, but some of those questions you're asking are similar as well. Oh, one other thing is online trivia. So Griffiths Leadership Society did this earlier this summer, and it went over really well and was pretty straightforward. We used a platform called Kahoot. And it was pretty simple. Like I said, I think we had 25 or so people on. It took us less than an hour, so it didn't take up your whole night, but it was a great way to connect and have something to talk about. We had one of our Griffiths exec members be kind of the game master and lead us through that. And my team was talking about this yesterday. We do think there's an element there with those of you who have done trivia as a fundraiser before, that could be something you could do as well. And I think Jason's going to talk about fundraisers here in a little bit too. So just a few ideas to kind of get your brain churning and get a little creative.
Yeah, I think I'm next up here with networking events. Thank you for those of you who tried out the speed networking platform with us just after lunchtime. I hope I cautioned appropriately that platform is really in beta stage. It is being tested out and developed, and appreciated those of you who went through the experience. I don't think it was perfectly seamless for everyone. I think most of us got through it okay, or found our way back through the maze, but the general idea is to facilitate quick interactions with a little bit of information that you can do one-on-one and not be stunted by the overwhelming nature of online engagement when there's a lot of folks. I think generally the sentiment from those of us who participated is that there's foundationally something strong there. Certainly the platform has some more growth and development, which I think we've got some good feedback of things that would be helpful for the developers. But it is something that I think could make sense. It's kind of creating opportunities for one-on-one connection, and something that we're really lacking right now and don't have a lot of opportunities to meet new people. Certainly there are, people within your bubble and that you have some contact with, but this is puts us in a situation where you could facilitate that for different populations that you're supporting within your organization. So I really want to shout out to Mizzou NYC and the Chicago chapter. They collaborated on one of these events and really brought it to our attention, and really had great participation. I mean, who would have thought we'd have a networking event with alumni in Chicago and New York, connecting with each other on a Wednesday night. So again, it's just kind of the taking advantage of opportunities and the uniqueness of this to advance engagement, and appreciate the forward thinking from Brian and others who made that happen. Fundraisers, we certainly appreciate and understand that a lot of you have had certainly a kind of your style pinched and cramped from what you traditionally were able to do in the spring through the summer, now going into the fall. And the tremendous work that you do to make the Mizzou Alumni Association the largest provider of student scholarships. And while you have been faced with challenges on the revenue side, the need for our students still exists. So I know that there's a very top of mind issue for many of you, and I wanted to talk through and offer just some thoughts and ideas. We don't have every answer for you, but the first one is to kind of think of kind of the low tech side of things. So before you think virtual, why don't we think about the fact that you have within your organizations a pretty loyal, connected constituency of people who have supported you in the past. Perhaps, you know, this isn't, you know, blasting out and hitting everybody. This is, you know, that there are a couple dozen folks who are your core supporters, and could we reach out to them? If you're thinking from if the need to fix is that we know we've got a scholarship commitment that we want to continue to fulfill for our organization, how can we connect the dots? Can we communicate with supporters of your organization to say, well, we missed you in April when we normally would have gotten together for our fundraising events, but yet we still want to send a great class of students to Mizzou next spring. Can you help us and fill the gap that we need? Work with your staff liaison. We can help queue you up with past attendees, past donors to your chapter. And this is really peer-to-peer focus. This is reaching out and directing them to your direct site so they can give online and be receipted and acknowledged. But maybe don't worry about the event first. If the solution is, let's think about how we want to continue our scholarship mission, and then worry about an event in the spring or in the future when aspirationally things will look better and more appropriate. Let's think about what opportunities exist there. When we are thinking about event-based fundraising, some of you have used a platform that is available to you called One Cause. This is largely supported for in-person events, but we've got a few groups who have done virtual events on it. Let's see, I think the Rocky Mountain Tigers did a virtual fundraising event pre-COVID, where we just basically had like an online auction for a watch party. It's just a streamlined opportunity. Folks can bid against one another, very visually engaging. It's a safe, secure, PCI compliant place for individuals to either make direct donations, bid on silent auction if it's appropriate, a live auction, and have all that information in one platform handled cleanly, and then the revenue go to your designated account, and also those individuals be directly receipted. So that's a platform that any of your staff liaisons can work on with you. Again, we want appropriate notice and get you set up to be successful for it. I think also acknowledge silent auctions are a little different these days. Experiential based things that a lot of us rely on for a fundraising perspective are not as appealing right now because they just don't fit a lot of lifestyles in the same way. But be creative about what the opportunities that you could think about from an auction standpoint. Also, One Cause has added on some functionality that traditionally it's just helps with the registration, the auction, the traditional things that happen at in-person events. They are adding functionality to help support virtual events. It's an add-on process and they're early into it, so we're not sure how it applies in terms of it is added cost. That right now One Cost doesn't cost anything for that chapter to use. MAA absorbs the cost of it, but if you wanted to host a virtual event in which everything was seamless and the run of show was run through the platform and you had a mix of videos and live presentations and really engaging content to engage your donors and celebrate the cause that you're supporting, One Cause can do that also. And if that's something that is appealing to you, then your staff liaison can help and coach you through and examine what the platform can do. Just kind of other ideas that fit here in the event-based side of things. I don't know if it was mentioned or not. Today was supposed to be the Schaffner Alumni Association's golf tournament. They have gone virtual this year and added a 5K element to it. And so Rather than golfing in person today, we have, I think, I don't know, 50 or 60 golfers from the Kaffner Alumni Association who are going to be golfing on their own and recording their scores and sending them in. We've seen chapters at other SEC peers really have some good success in this area. Our Kaffner friends added in a 5K element to this too, the same kind of sentiment that we won't run a 5K together. You can run a 5K in at your own discretion, and then record your time and send it in and participate and support the Mizzou family by kind of that shared experience, even if we do it a little. Look at Emily Keeker sharing the focus on the golf tournament, which you can still participate in. So those are a few ideas that we have to offer, and I think at this point, Steph helped me, but I think we're going to transition to your side of the thing, and by you I mean our alumni volunteers and leaders, and offer opportunities for you to ask questions and ideas. And if y'all are agreeable, I think Morgan's style of approaching this was helpful, which was either enter your name or your question in the chat, or raise your hand electronically by using the reaction thing so you can be called on, and that way we can keep from stepping on one another. But are there any questions? Looks like Kitty has queued us up from Dallas-Fort Worth. So Kitty, you'll take the floor first.
All right, so here in Dallas-Fort Worth, we have 3 locations, and the locations have, we talked about this a month ago with our watch party locations. They said, we're ready to host you guys. We're so excited to bring you back. And we know people are gonna go. So our approach, we were thinking, was, are we allowed to say, listen, these locations will play the game, but there is not an official watch party. Please make reservations. Please follow the restaurant's guidelines. If you see fellow Tigers, please be socially distant and respectful. Is that messaging okay, or is that too close to an event?
Kitty, I think you queued that up really, really nicely. And so there's some nuance here, and your staff liaison can help you with it, but what you described seems perfectly appropriate. Many of you have relationships with businesses and establishments that need the support of the Mizzou family, and they've supported you in many ways. And so continuing, if they are hosting events and activities and putting the Tigers on TV, and you want to use local social media to promote the idea that Buffalo Wild Wings will have the Tigers on Saturday. This is not an official DFW watch party. Our volunteers will not be staffing or hosting. There won't be games. You don't have to say there's not going to be games, but I'm offering the clarification that we're not hosting, and pointing people to the attention that the Tigers are on TV at a place where you can safely socially distance and enjoy and support the Mizzou family as an individual. That is totally fine and appropriate. But it is not an event. So I guess I'll also offer the legal language. We would not call that an event, and therefore the way you described it sounds appropriate. I don't know if that kind of hit everyone's ears in the same way, or if there's any questions. I can try to clarify, but we've kind of written out some language that we can help with that, and we'd be glad to send it to you of anybody who has circumstances that you're thinking about that approach.
Thanks. It looks like Marianne Behan, you've got a question about your canceled banquet and what you can do to help recognize and celebrate awardees. Go ahead, you can unmute yourself.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. Our banquet is traditionally the end of April, and that's when we give our scholarships, and that's when we do our award winners. I'm sure that's true of a lot of chapters. We canceled ours, of course. What the board is struggling with is whether to just wait and do those same people again next April, or do something now. I tend to think we need to do something now, but I'd like to hear your perspective.
Sir.
I'll start in and we'll welcome anybody else, but so I can tell you what we thought about with our very distinguished Volunteer of the Year awards. We kind of had this debate and as an association about knowing, as it got late in the summer, it was just determined that we wouldn't be getting together this weekend in person, or I guess originally what would have been last weekend for Leaders Weekend. But we certainly wanted to celebrate the great service of Wally and Pam and John and Brian and Caleb, and didn't want that moment to pass. So we did, I think it's important to recognize, I think doing it I hope we celebrated them in a kind of MAA style last night. So that would be our coaching or environment. But we're also going to take the opportunity in the future when it's appropriate and get to recognize those 5 individuals in person too. We may not give Wally the mic again, but we'll definitely are going to have the opportunity to recognize and do it in true traditional style as well. So I guess, Marion, I'd say do it both if it feels right, but there's not one right way to do it. I'll also say, like faculty alumni awards, we've decided we're going to wait. Traditionally, that's an event that would be in November. It will not take place physically in November, and we're going to wait and recognize those individuals in this year's class in the future. So I think there's got to find the right style for your group.
There's some great comments in here as well. I don't know if you all are watching the chat. So Reed Dimmitt mentioned there's a Mizzou Alumni Peloton group, #Mizzou Alumni, and there's 53 members in there and growing. So that's a cool opportunity to connect with Tigers. And then Michelle Leonard mentioned, be sure to revisit your employer's matching dollar program. She said hers just revamped their program to a community grant award where they have increased match percentages and have added grants based on volunteer activities. So that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that too.
Yeah, I would like to I received a question in a private chat to me about how virtual events and play into, and can we kind of discuss the changes to the Columns Capstone recognition program for our chapters. I want to start by saying that we feel good about a lot of the, at least column side of the requirements are things that can be done without hosting events, things about turning in your board roster, things about trying to get a new volunteer membership-based items, but I know that it can seem a little bit daunting. So in case some of you don't have some of that updated information, I wanted to turn that over to ask that question.
I can chime in a little bit there too. I think we've been very deliberate, at least with the changes, but we've tried to call these, activities and not necessarily an event. So before, it's always been something like you have to, I think that it has been a requirement in the past that you've had to host an alumni engagement event or like a student event or student, but we've changed that to activity. So you don't necessarily have to hold an in-person nor a virtual event, but something that could bring people together. So like in the student case, you all commit as a board to do congrats notes together, or somehow like there's some other things that we can do to be able, or that we can work with to be able to still be able to support our students or support our alumni, but not necessarily gathering together in person or virtually if that just doesn't work for your the vibe of where you are for your organization. We know that everybody's a little bit different, that some are going to be more accepting and attuned to Zoom or virtual options, and others it's just not going to draw anybody. So we know everybody's a little bit different and want to be understanding and accommodating of that, and so that's why we really have tried to lax maybe what the definition is, but we also don't want to, we just don't want to like hit pause for 6 months, 9 months, hopefully not. We just don't want to totally like lose that time or be in a vacuum. So trying to get creative with what are some of the other activities we could potentially do. And so we kind of tweaked up some of those definitions a bit.
I think Amy has a follow-up question about that she would like to ask. So go ahead and unmute yourself, Amy.
I do. So my question with that, and I totally appreciate the fact that it's going from just events to activities, because I know things are changing. So I don't know how things are for the chapter side, but I know for our organization side that the information is due October 1 to get like a list of events and or activities. I don't know about anybody else, but I am literally rethinking. I mean, I know you guys are rethinking everything we've ever done. I've done on campus for the last 20 years. I'm rethinking. So I'm trying to think, oh my God, how am I going to come up with this in time to turn this into you guys? I just want to put TBD really big across the thing and to send it in and say, I'll give it to you as I got it. I don't know how.
And honestly, that's a-okay, because we're like, we're adjusting and trying to be flexible with every single thing too. So I think especially if from the organization or if you're part of a school and college, you have those plans where we ask a little bit more in advance typically. I think if you've got a few things, and maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be a full comprehensive plan. If you've got a few things that you are kind of teasing out, you're like, we think this would be good, then send those. We're going to be flexible more this year. It doesn't necessarily, in normal cases, yeah, we do like to adhere to more of a hard deadline and want to know what the plan is. And really that's to be able to support and accommodate in a good way. But yeah, this year, everything seems like it's changing every week or so. We can be flexible. So just be in good communication with me, your liaison, and then we can make those adjustments as you've got more ideas and all that stuff.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Looks like we missed one from Brian a little bit earlier. He asked if there were thoughts or advice for virtual events geared toward helping Tigers get hired and find fellow Tigers to hire. Ashley Hutchison from our KC Mizzou Alumni chapter pointed his attention to Tiger Connect series that the Kansas City chapter has been doing. Really fantastic, talented, high-level, really professionals in a variety of fields that are part of this series in Kansas City. Typically 3 or 4 participants in panel style to give kind of great just-in-time information. We targeted particularly the class of 2020 with that engagement series and this idea of welcome to Kansas City and what to do. Perhaps you're now coming home to be with mom and dad for a little bit, and what can you do in this unique environment? So really pleased with the response we got. It was targeted to younger graduates, but in those situations we did let all alumni participate, and at least via promotion via social media. So those were really well received. But anybody have other thoughts or ideas or examples that kind of speak to this idea of how we leverage the Mizzou network to help other Tigers from a career development, career options, opening doors, opportunity? If you have them, pop them in the chat and for everyone's benefit. What other opportunities? Anybody thinking of something or that you wanted to kind of brainstorm with a group of folks who have your shared interest?
Jason, I was about to chime in too regarding exactly what you just said. Even if you don't want to share it now, I think a key takeaway here, because it can be so different and varied based on your situation and your event and the parameters, is contact your liaison. If you have a question or just want to talk through something, we are here and we can work through it together. We can help you submit that event guideline or event request if we need to do that. But we can definitely talk through some of those challenges or questions here as well. But just wanted to reiterate that, like, if you have a question or if you think of something over the weekend, you know that we're here to help you out with it.
And by hosting this virtual leadership conference, we've all gained a lot of competency with our virtual event skills. So bring us your creative ideas and let's see what we can do with them. We want to help you and support you and come up with fun and creative ways to engage alumni. So like Molly said, let us know how we can help.
I think something Stephanie said early on too is kind of this focus on, in this environment of quality over quantity. It's kind of one of those situations, if you roll something out in your market and it doesn't quite go well, it certainly don't want to have a dampening effect on trying something, but really want to put our best foot forward when we move into a virtual setting so that we can build support and an audience and people will come back and enjoy the experience. So again, pointing back to the comms program and especially for our bigger chapters, we've had the thresholds lowered significantly and lower expectations on the number of activities so that we really focus on quality engagement and partnering with the association on some of those overarching things that you can get air cover from with Homecoming at Home or the MIZ talks, or things that you can put a local spin on and use local media power and marketing channels to support and market so that we can all benefit, but we can all watch online regardless of where we are.
Jason, looks like we've got another question from Patty about a fundraising question. Patty, if you want to unmute yourself, you can ask us.
Yeah, so I was thinking that when you were talking a little while ago about, you know, our challenges as chapters we're going to face with fundraising, you know, if there was a way that the central MAA organization could put together a lift and use fundraising solicitation, and where we could maybe, you know, encourage people to donate in honor of a fellow student from their time at Mizzou, a faculty member, kind of back to the point in the earlier discussion about what resonates with people. And then, you know, perhaps something we could all lift and use, and then, you know, maybe that even there's a full circle thing where then that recognition, a note goes to that person, assuming they're, you know, there's contact information available, acknowledging that this gift was given in their honor, and maybe we have a central social media platform where those, you know, gifts made in honor of somebody get publicized, you know, something like that, where we wouldn't have to invent it ourselves, but each chapter could lift and use it in lieu of a face-to-face event. So
Patty, I like that a bunch, and I think that the better tools and kind of, you know, marketing that we can provide you, and then as volunteers you can use your peer-to-peer networks to leverage and connect, and perhaps the energy or event that you might traditionally spend on an in-person event for the next 6 months, if we use as a peer-to-peer standpoint from as we're talking about fundraising. And I know that's not engagement, but the reality that we do have organizations that don't want to miss out on the opportunity to continue your scholarship philanthropy. So definitely love that. We'll work on that and you up with some tools. You know, you all either have or can have giving sites. We call them Give Direct, but these are landing pages that are on the web that are specifically for your respective scholarship accounts that you can point people to. So well suited for social media and peer-to-peer appeals. So I love that suggestion, Patty. We can definitely help out.
I want to say we have an idea kind of floating in the chat too about a virtual campus tour from like a current Mizzou tour team member. And I think that ideas like that are really good ideas when we talked about having wide alumni reach. Any alumni that's been off campus, no matter where they live now, would probably love a taste of like, what is campus like right now from a current student? So that's one of those ideas that it's really awesome and cool that you guys shared it, and would be great to share broadly among alumni when it comes to events and using our really customized ALC platform.
I think there's also kind of a way to do something, a play on that, that's very less produced but more authentic. So, you know, if it's a student from Mexico, Missouri, and we just Facebook Live it with that student talking about their Mizzou student experience, and they're grateful to be, you know, maybe it's your alumni scholar from Audrain County, and Tony gets that student to give a 5-minute walking tour while they're walking and talking about their experience so far, and a little gratitude for the student support, and see campus and be reassured that the quality of experience is being supported and maintained here. So I think we definitely can dig into that idea more. There's some cool stuff there. So much, you know, the production value is lowered for all of us. I don't think we're all looking, as evidenced by us crashing and burning earlier today during our ALC platform. You know, you just gotta roll with it. And so I don't know that everything has to be super polished or high-end production.
Yeah, I think we're also gonna say, if you are liking that idea, tour, work with your liaison first, and then we can help you either identify a student scholar that's local, or could potentially contact our partners over in admissions or visitor relations to see if they can help identify a student. We just want to be cautious not to, I know some of you may have existing relationships, but we do want to be thoughtful not to like overwhelm our colleagues on the other side and inundate them with similar requests. So talk to your liaison if this is something that you're interested in, and then we can help you line up a potential speaker. There's another one, a comment that was up here I think we missed, but I wanted to go back to Terrence Logan, and I think you said, Terrence, you had an idea about a live streaming fundraising event you wanted to put out there?
Yeah, when you were, excuse me, when you were talking about different ideas about fundraising events and tools, I was looking up a couple of things, and I saw some ideas about peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns. raffles, online auctions, live virtual events. If there's something really cool in your area, or I guess that you do in person, obviously with all the different ideas being thrown out there, doing it virtually, thinking of an idea of how to raise funds here locally. I'm in San Diego. I just joined actually last week, since I haven't been out here that long. So I was just thinking about a couple of different ideas of how to get that ball up and running, and just maybe trying to do something that hasn't been done before, just being a little more creative.
Terrence, I love the thought there. You know, one tool that we have that definitely can help with that is the One Cause platform that will at least assist with the transactional nature of whether it's just a direct donation or a raffle or a silent auction opportunity, but really would throw it out to everyone. If you have seen events or activities where people are putting a little different twist on things related to how we're currently engaging, I know we'd all benefit from it, and we can, we'll certainly condense all this chat information and share it back out to everyone if you have ideas or suggestions to share for everyone's benefit.
I just want to make a quick comment that I know that we talk a lot, and just on the same note of taking an event that you would traditionally have and finding a way to make it virtual. And I know that it can feel a lot like you're losing something. You're losing that ability to be face-to-face. You're losing the ability to interact directly with each other, serve food in the same way, whatever it might be. But I also wanted to say that there are some, good benefits for us to take advantage of in the time being. For example, in this leadership conference, you all, if you've attended, know about how many people come to Leaders Weekend, and we've almost doubled the number of registrants that we normally have for Leaders Weekend because we're able to do it virtually. And while I know we would all love to have you here on campus, and we'll want to again, it's really awesome to know that we've engaged volunteers that have never even heard of Leaders Weekend before and are attending one right now. So I know it's really hard, and we completely sympathize with what's going on, but there's an awesome opportunity here to reach people that maybe you won't be able to at future events and haven't been able to before.
I think Susie mentioned, what about a tour of Next Gen? I think that will be awesome when it is done. I hope we can, honestly, I hope we can tour it in person by the time that it is complete, but that's a great idea. And Deb had a question about Mizzou swag for auctions. The Alumni Association does have access to signed balls by coaches, footballs by Drinkwitz, and basketballs by Coach Martin. We don't always have them in stock, but we can try to get them for you if you had something coming up. Not so much with the current pro players, but we do have access to footballs and basketballs signed by coaches. Tom Glave asked update on Mizzou Giving Day.
And Tom, and I don't have a firm update. I think everyone's expectations that we'll have Mizzou Giving Day next year. I don't have a date to share. More specifically, I don't have confirmation about whether or not there will be challenge or match dollars available. Obviously, we have resource pressures across campus, and your association is no different. So we'll just have to stay tuned, but certainly the opportunity to peer-to-peer fundraise and support your scholarship philanthropy will be supported from a marketing standpoint. We'll just wait for the plan to come together and plan from there. Now, this has been a fantastic conversation. I know there's so many more things that we can get into. Please lean on your staff, and let's be collaborative and help one another. I just so appreciate having you spend your time and your talent on behalf of the University of Missouri. Your alumni engagement team and alumni association staff are so proud to serve Mizzou with you. So thank you so much for connecting with all of us today.